In a world where humanity had grown comfortable with its achievements, life moved at a steady pace. People went about their days, trusting that the technology they had built would continue to protect and serve them. Cities buzzed with activity, filled with towering skyscrapers and screens that displayed endless streams of news and entertainment. It was a time when people believed they had reached the peak of progress. But one day, everything changed. It started with a flash in the sky. Across the globe, people stopped what they were doing as strange ships descended from above. These ships were unlike anything anyone had ever seen, smooth, silver, and glowing faintly, as if alive. They hovered silently over major cities like New York, Tokyo, and London, casting long shadows on the ground below. At first, panic spread quickly. Were these invaders? Would they attack? But instead of weapons or destruction, the ships simply stayed there unmoving, waiting. Then came the message. A voice echoed through every device, every television, radio, and phone, speaking perfect English. "We are the Valans," it said. "Your species has been observed for many years. You have shown potential, but you remain unready to join the Galactic Council of Advanced Civilizations." The voice paused, letting the words sink in. "To prove your worth, you must solve the eternal equation, a puzzle so complex that no other species has succeeded in unraveling it." The announcement sent shockwaves around the world. Governments called emergency meetings. Scientists gathered in labs, trying to make sense of the challenge. Journalists scrambled to report on the story, while ordinary people debated what it all meant. Some laughed, calling it a hoax or some kind of elaborate prank. Others grew angry, accusing the so-called Valans of arrogance. Still, a few listened, closely wondering if this might be humanity's chance to step onto a bigger stage. Daniel Carter was one of those who listened. He lived in a small apartment in Chicago, surrounded by books and papers. Daniel wasn't famous or powerful. He was just a mathematician who loved solving problems. When he heard the Valan message, his heart raced. He sat down at his desk, staring at the equation displayed on his computer screen. It looked impossible, a jumble of symbols and numbers that seemed to twist logic itself. Most experts agreed. It couldn't be solved. But Daniel felt something stir inside him. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was pride, but whatever it was, it pushed him to try. His wife, Laura, noticed how quiet he had become. She walked into the room, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You've been staring at that thing for hours," she said gently, placing 1 cup beside him. "Do you really think you can figure it out?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted, rubbing his temples. "But I have to try. What if we can do it? What if this is our chance to show everyone, even the Valans, that we're more than they think we are?" Laura sighed, but didn't argue. She knew how determined Daniel could be once he set his mind to something. Still, she worried. The world had already moved on. After weeks of failed attempts, most people had given up. Experts declared the equation unsolvable, and governments stopped funding research. Even Daniel's colleagues at the university dismissed his efforts, telling him not to waste his time. But Daniel refused to give up. He remembered someone he used to work with back in his university days, Emma Lewis. Emma was a physicist, known for her sharp mind and creative thinking. If anyone could help him crack the code, it was her. So he sent her an email explaining his plan. To his surprise, she replied almost immediately. "Are you serious about this?" she wrote. "Because if you are, I'm in." When they met at a cafe near the university, Emma looked skeptical but intrigued. She leaned forward, her dark hair falling over her shoulder as she studied the notes Daniel had brought. "This is insane," she said finally. "No one's been able to touch this thing. Why do you think we can?" "Because no one else is even trying anymore," Daniel said firmly. "Everyone gave up, but we can't. Not if we want to prove them wrong. Not if we want to prove ourselves wrong." Emma hesitated, then nodded. "All right, let's do it." They decided to keep their work secret, knowing that public attention would only bring ridicule. Using borrowed lab space and outdated equipment, they began piecing together theories and running calculations. Days turned into weeks, and the pile of rejected ideas grew taller. Frustration mounted, but neither of them quit. They worked late into the night, fueled by determination and countless cups of coffee. One evening, as they pored over yet another failed simulation, a young man walked into the lab. His name was Ryan Brooks, and he was a programmer who had heard whispers about their project. "I want to help," he said boldly. "I may not be a mathematician or a physicist, but I can write algorithms faster than anyone I know." At first, Daniel and Emma were hesitant. Bringing in someone new felt risky, especially since they were working in secret. But Ryan's enthusiasm was infectious, and his skills proved invaluable. With his help, they developed new ways to test their theories, speeding up the process significantly. As the team grew closer, so did their understanding of the equation. Patterns began to emerge, subtle connections that hinted at deeper meanings. It was slow going, and there were moments when doubt crept in. But each breakthrough, no matter how small, reignited their hope. Outside the lab, the world continued to mock their efforts. News outlets ran stories about the three dreamers wasting their time on an impossible task. Late-night comedians joked about their garage science, and online commenters called them fools. Even friends and family urged them to move on. Laura tried to stay supportive, though she couldn't hide her concern. "What happens if you fail?" she asked one night as they lay in bed. "Will it break you?" "It won't," Daniel promised. "Even if we don't solve it, we'll have tried." And that's more than most people can say. Despite the criticism, the trio pressed on. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew that giving up wasn't an option. For Daniel, it wasn't just about solving the equation. It was about proving that humanity still had the spirit to reach for the stars. And as long as they kept believing, there was always a chance they might succeed. As weeks turned into months, the world continued to move on. The initial excitement over the Valen challenge had faded, replaced by apathy and ridicule. People went back to their daily routines, dismissing the eternal equation as nothing more than a cruel joke played by an alien race that thought itself superior. Governments quietly shelved their efforts, deciding it wasn't worth wasting resources on something deemed impossible. Scientists who had once eagerly tackled the problem now avoided even mentioning it, fearing damage to their reputations. But in a small, dimly lit lab tucked away in an old university building, Daniel Carter, Emma Lewis, and Ryan Brooks refused to give up. They worked tirelessly, day and night, driven by a shared belief that humanity could rise to the occasion. Their progress was slow, but they were determined to keep pushing forward. Each failure brought them closer to understanding the puzzle, each setback teaching them something new. Still, the weight of the world's skepticism pressed down on them. The media didn't help. Late-night talk shows made jokes about the trio, calling them the dream team of delusion. One host held up a crude drawing of the equation and pretended to solve it by randomly scribbling numbers. The audience roared with laughter. Online forums were no better. Commenters mocked their efforts, accusing them of seeking fame or wasting time on a hopeless cause. Some even suggested they were working with the Valons to pull off some elaborate hoax. Daniel tried to ignore the criticism, but it wasn't easy. He often found himself replaying the harsh words in his mind, wondering if people were right. Was he wasting his time? Was this all just a pipe dream? But then he'd look at Emma and Ryan, both of whom worked just as hard as he did, and he'd feel a renewed sense of purpose. If they believed, then so could he. Laura, Daniel's wife, did her best to support him, though she couldn't hide her worry. She noticed how tired he looked, how the stress of the project seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, she placed a hand on his arm. "You're doing something amazing," she said softly, "but I don't want you to lose yourself in this. What happens if you can't solve it?" Daniel sighed, staring at the floor. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I can't stop trying. Not yet. If we give up, then the Valens win. They'll think we're exactly what they said. We are too weak, too primitive to matter, and I refuse to let that happen." Emma shared similar struggles. Her colleagues at the university had stopped taking her seriously, treating her like she was chasing a childish fantasy. Some even suggested she should focus on more realistic research. It hurt, but she pushed through, reminding herself why she had joined the project in the first place. Ryan, being younger and less established, faced fewer direct criticisms, but he still felt the sting of doubt from others. His friends teased him, asking when he planned to return to real life. But Ryan didn't care. He knew he was part of something important, something bigger than himself. Despite the negativity surrounding them, the trio began making real progress. One night, after hours of running simulations, Ryan leaned back in his chair with a triumphant grin. "Guys, I think I've got something," he said, pointing to the screen. The others gathered around, their eyes scanning the data. What they saw took their breath away. Hidden within the chaos of the equation was a pattern, a faint but undeniable structure that hinted at deeper meaning. "It's like a code," Emma whispered, her voice filled with awe. "A language we haven't fully cracked yet." Daniel nodded, feeling a surge of excitement. "This is it," he said. "This is the breakthrough we've been waiting for." They spent the next several days analyzing the pattern, piecing together its components bit by bit. It was painstaking work, requiring every ounce of their focus and creativity. But slowly they began to understand. The equation wasn't just a test, it was a map. A map leading to something far greater than anyone had imagined. Their discovery reignited their determination, but it also brought new challenges. Building on their findings required materials and technology far beyond what they currently had access to. Their outdated equipment struggled to keep up with the demands of their increasingly complex experiments. Frustration mounted as they hit one roadblock after another. They needed help, serious help, and they needed it fast. That's when Emma remembered someone from her past, Sarah Bennett. Sarah was a wealthy entrepreneur known for her passion for innovation and cutting-edge technology. She had funded numerous scientific projects over the years, always eager to support bold ideas. Emma hesitated before reaching out, unsure if Sarah would take them seriously. But desperation pushed her to send an email explaining their situation. To their surprise, Sarah responded almost immediately. She met them at her sleek modern office downtown, listening intently as they explained their work. When they finished, she leaned back in her chair, her sharp eyes studying them carefully. "You realize this sounds insane, right?" she said finally. "No," Daniel replied, "but we also know we're onto something big." Sarah smiled, a hint of admiration in her expression. "I like insane," she said, "and I like people who refuse to give up. Count me in." With Sarah's financial backing, the team gained access to state-of-the-art tools and resources. They rented a larger lab space, hired assistants to handle the more mundane tasks, and purchased advanced software capable of processing their data faster than ever before. For the first time since starting the project, they felt like they might actually have a chance. Word of their progress eventually reached the Valens. One afternoon, as the team worked in the lab, a shimmering figure appeared in the corner of the room. It was Zoran, the Valen ambassador. His presence was both mesmerizing and unsettling, his smooth metallic skin reflecting the light like liquid silver. He studied them silently for a moment before speaking. "You continue to pursue this task despite overwhelming odds," he said, his voice calm but tinged with curiosity. "Why?" Daniel stepped forward, meeting Zoran's gaze without flinching. "Because we believe in ourselves," he said firmly. "We believe in humanity. Just because something seems impossible doesn't mean it is." Zoran tilted his head slightly as if considering Daniel's words. "Your species is intriguing," he said after a pause. "Most civilizations would have abandoned such a futile endeavor long ago. Yet here you stand, persisting against logic." Emma crossed her arms, her expression defiant. "Maybe that's what makes us different," she said. "We don't give up just because something's hard." Zoran didn't respond right away. Instead, he observed them for a few more moments before disappearing as suddenly as he had arrived. The encounter left the team shaken but resolute. They knew the Valons were watching, perhaps even doubting whether they could succeed. But that only fueled their determination further. As the deadline approached, the pressure mounted. Every calculation, every experiment, every sleepless night brought them closer to the truth, or to failure. The world outside remained oblivious, consumed by its own distractions. But in that little lab, 3 ordinary people dared to dream of the extraordinary, and though the odds were stacked against them, they refused to let fear or doubt stand in their way. For Daniel, Emma, and Ryan, it wasn't just about solving the equation anymore. It was about proving that humanity still had the courage to reach for the stars, even when everyone else laughed and gave up. The final weeks leading up to the Valon deadline were a blur of activity for Daniel, Emma, and Ryan. Their lab became a hive of frantic energy, with machines humming constantly and papers scattered across every surface. The breakthrough they had discovered, the hidden pattern within the eternal equation, had given them hope, but it also revealed just how complex the puzzle truly was. Each layer they unraveled seemed to lead to another, deeper mystery. It was like peeling an onion, except this onion never ended. Sarah Bennett's support had been invaluable. Her funding allowed them to upgrade their equipment and hire assistants who could handle the more tedious tasks, freeing up Daniel, Emma, and Ryan to focus on the bigger picture. But even with all the resources at their disposal, time was slipping away. The Valons had set a strict deadline, and the clock was ticking louder with each passing day. Despite the pressure, the trio remained united. They worked in shifts, taking turns sleeping while the others pushed forward. Daniel often found himself staring at the whiteboard covered in equations, his mind racing as he tried to connect the dots. Emma spent hours poring over data, her sharp eyes catching details that others might miss. Ryan, ever the optimist, kept morale high with his jokes and relentless enthusiasm, even when things looked bleak. One evening, as lightning flashed outside and rain pounded against the windows, Ryan suddenly shouted, "Wait! Stop everything!" He was hunched over his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. Daniel and Emma rushed over, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "What is it?" Emma asked, leaning in to see the screen. "I think I've got it," Ryan said, his voice trembling with excitement. "Look at this." On the screen was a simulation of the equation, now fully mapped out into a 3-dimensional model. It pulsed and shifted almost like it was alive. At its core was a structure, a blueprint of sorts, that suggested the equation wasn't just a test of intelligence. It was instructions for building something. "A device," Emma whispered, her eyes wide. "It's a blueprint for a device." Daniel nodded slowly, his heart pounding. "But what does it do?" They spent the next few hours analyzing the design, piecing together its function. What they uncovered left them stunned. The device, which they dubbed the Nexus Core, appeared to manipulate space-time itself. It could create bridges between dimensions, bend reality, and potentially unlock secrets about the universe that humanity had only dreamed of. "It's incredible," Emma said, her voice filled with awe. "If we can build this, if we can make it work, it changes everything." But building the Nexus Core was no small feat. The materials required were rare and expensive, and some of them didn't even exist on Earth. Sarah stepped in again, using her connections to secure what they needed. She also arranged for a team of engineers to assist them, ensuring the construction process went as smoothly as possible. As the days dwindled, the tension in the lab grew palpable. Every mistake felt monumental, every delay catastrophic. Laura, Daniel's wife, visited often, bringing food and offering words of encouragement. She could see the toll the project was taking on him, but she admired his determination. "You're doing something amazing," she told him one night as they sat together in the lab. "No matter what happens, don't forget that." Finally, after countless sleepless nights and endless cups of coffee, the Nexus Core was complete. It stood in the center of the lab, a sleek metallic sphere etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly. The team gathered around it, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was it, the moment of truth. The Valons arrived the next morning. A crowd had already gathered outside the lab, drawn by rumors of the demonstration. News crews set up cameras, reporters eagerly awaiting any scrap of information. Government officials and scientists from around the world watched intently, curious to see if the trio's efforts would amount to anything. Some came hoping for success, others expected failure. Zoran, the Velan ambassador, materialized in the lab without warning. His presence commanded attention, his smooth, reflective skin shimmering under the lights. He surveyed the Nexus core with an unreadable expression, then turned to Daniel. "You have constructed the device," Zoran said, his tone neutral. "But constructing is not enough. You must activate it." Daniel swallowed hard but nodded. He stepped forward, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. With Emma and Ryan standing beside him, he initiated the activation sequence. The Nexus core hummed softly at first, then grew louder, vibrating with an otherworldly energy. Streams of light began to dance around it, forming intricate patterns in the air. The room filled with a warm, golden glow, and for a brief moment, everyone present felt connected to each other, to the universe, and to possibilities they couldn't yet comprehend. Then something extraordinary happened. The ground beneath them shifted slightly, as though reality itself bent to accommodate the core's power. Time seemed to slow, and the air crackled with electricity. The crowd outside gasped, and even Zoran's stoic demeanor faltered, his eyes widening in surprise. After several tense minutes, the Nexus core stabilized, its glow dimming but not disappearing entirely. Silence fell over the lab as everyone waited for Zoran's verdict. The Velan ambassador studied the device for a long moment before speaking. "You have succeeded," he said finally, his voice tinged with awe. "No other species has solved the eternal equation in such a manner. You have earned your place among the stars." Cheers erupted from the crowd outside, tears streaming down faces as people embraced one another. Inside the lab, Daniel, Emma, and Ryan exchanged triumphant smiles, their exhaustion giving way to overwhelming joy. They had done it. They had proven humanity's potential. Laura hugged Daniel tightly, her own eyes brimming with tears. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. "I always believed in you." The Valen's reaction was unexpected. Instead of leaving immediately, Zoran lingered, watching the humans celebrate. There was a hint of admiration in his gaze, as though he had underestimated them. When Daniel approached him, Zoran spoke. "Your species possesses a unique quality," he said. "A stubbornness, a refusal to accept limits. It is admirable." Daniel nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "That's who we are," he said simply. "We believe in ourselves, even when no one else does." With that, Zoran disappeared, leaving behind a sense of wonder and possibility. The Velan's ships began to ascend into the sky, their mission apparently complete. Humanity had passed the test, proving that it belonged among the stars. In the days that followed, the world changed. The Valens extended an invitation for humanity to join the Galactic Council, opening doors to knowledge and opportunities beyond imagination. Daniel, Emma, and Ryan became global heroes, celebrated for their courage and ingenuity. But they remained humble, crediting their success to the collective effort of countless individuals who had dared to believe. For Daniel, the victory was bittersweet. He thought about all the people who had laughed, who had called their efforts futile, yet he also thought about those who had supported them, their families, their friends, and strangers who had sent messages of encouragement. It was proof that even in a world full of doubt, belief could still shine through. As the first human spacecraft prepared to venture beyond the solar system, guided by the principles unlocked through the Nexus core, Daniel gazed at the stars with quiet pride. Humanity had been told it couldn't succeed, but against all odds it had risen to the occasion. And so the story of Earth's triumph served as a reminder to future generations. No matter how insurmountable the challenge, there will always be those who refuse to give up, and sometimes that belief is enough to change the course of history. The days following the activation of the Nexus core were a whirlwind of celebration, disbelief, and reflection. News of humanity's success spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the globe. People who had once dismissed Daniel, Emma, and Ryan as dreamers now hailed them as heroes. Governments issued statements praising their achievement, while scientists marveled at the implications of the Nexus core. For the first time in history, humanity stood on the brink of joining a galactic community far beyond its wildest dreams. But, amidst the chaos and excitement, the trio remained grounded. They knew that solving the eternal equation was only the beginning. The Valons had opened a door, but it was up to humanity to step through it. And stepping through would require more than just intelligence or technology. It would demand unity, courage, and an unwavering belief in the future. The Valons themselves seemed intrigued by humanity's response. Zoran, their ambassador, made frequent appearances, observing human behavior with a mix of curiosity and respect. He often visited the lab where the Nexus core had been built, engaging Daniel, Emma, and Ryan in deep conversations about Earth's culture, history, and potential. Though his tone remained calm and measured, there was a subtle shift in how he addressed them, not as inferiors, but as equals. "You have surprised us," Zoran admitted during one such visit. "Your species is young, yet you possess a determination we rarely see. It is admirable." Emma smiled faintly, still adjusting to the idea that they were now representatives of their entire planet. "We're not perfect," she said, "but we're learning. That's what humans do. We adapt, we grow, and we keep moving forward." Zoran nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why you succeeded where others failed. Many civilizations reach a point where they believe they have nothing left to learn. They grow complacent, stagnant. You, however, remain restless." Daniel listened quietly, absorbing Zoran's words. He couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility weighing on his shoulders. The world was looking to him and his team for guidance, and though they had achieved something extraordinary, they were still just ordinary people. How could they possibly lead humanity into a new era? Laura noticed the change in Daniel. She saw the way he carried himself differently, the way his mind seemed constantly preoccupied with thoughts of the future. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, she placed a hand on his arm. "You've done something incredible," she said softly, "but don't let it consume you. Remember who you are." Daniel sighed, leaning back against the cushions. I want to make sure we don't waste this chance. So many people doubted us, laughed at us. Now we have an opportunity to show them what we're capable of." "And you will," Laura replied firmly. "But you can't do it alone. Let others share the burden. Trust that humanity is ready for this." Her words stayed with him, echoing in his mind as he returned to the lab the next morning. Emma and Ryan were already there, discussing plans for the future. The Nexus core sat in the center of the room, its faint glow a constant reminder of what they had accomplished and what lay ahead. "We need to think bigger," Emma said, pacing back and forth. "This isn't just about proving ourselves to the Valons. It's about showing humanity what we can achieve when we work together." Ryan nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. We should start sharing our findings with other scientists, engineers, anyone who can help us take this further. The Nexus core is just the beginning." Daniel agreed, though part of him hesitated. Opening up their work meant letting go of control, trusting others to carry the torch, but he knew they were right. If humanity was going to thrive among the stars, it would require collaboration on a scale never seen before. Over the next few weeks, the team worked tirelessly to document their research and share it with the world. Universities, research institutions, and private companies eagerly joined the effort, contributing their own expertise and resources. The Nexus core became the foundation for countless new projects, each one pushing the boundaries of what was possible. From advancements in energy production to breakthroughs in medical technology, the ripple effects of their discovery transformed society in ways no one could have predicted. The media played a crucial role in shaping public perception. Journalists, who had once mocked Daniel, Emma, and Ryan, now highlighted their journey as a testament to human resilience. Documentaries aired on television, books were written, and interviews filled the airwaves. People around the world drew inspiration from their story, reminded that even in the face of overwhelming odds, belief and perseverance could lead to greatness. Sarah Bennett, whose financial support had been instrumental in their success, used her influence to fund new scientific initiatives. She established grants and scholarships aimed at nurturing the next generation of innovators, ensuring that humanity's progress would continue long after the initial excitement faded. Her actions earned her widespread admiration, and she became a symbol of what could be achieved when wealth and ambition were used for the greater good. As preparations began for humanity's first steps beyond the solar system, the Valens offered guidance. They shared knowledge about interstellar travel, communication systems, and the delicate balance required to coexist with other civilizations. Zoran emphasized the importance of humility and caution, warning that the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. "You are newcomers," he said. "Respect those who came before you and tread carefully." His advice resonated deeply with Daniel, who understood the weight of responsibility that came with exploring the unknown. He often found himself reflecting on the lessons learned during their journey, the value of teamwork, the power of belief, and the importance of never giving up, no matter how insurmountable the challenge might seem. The launch of the first human spacecraft marked a historic moment. Thousands gathered at the site, watching as the sleek vessel ascended into the sky, guided by the principles unlocked through the Nexus core. Cheers erupted as it disappeared into the horizon, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams with it. Among the crowd were Daniel, Emma, and Ryan, standing side by side with their families and friends. Tears streamed down their faces as they realized the magnitude of what they had achieved. For Daniel, the experience was bittersweet. He thought about all the sacrifices they had made, the sleepless nights and countless failures, but he also thought about the moments of triumph, the camaraderie they had shared, and the belief that had kept them going when everything seemed lost. It was proof that even in a world full of doubt, faith in oneself and others could create miracles. As the celebrations continued late into the night, Daniel gazed at the stars, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Humanity had been given a second chance, a chance to redefine itself, to reach for the stars and beyond. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, he knew they were ready. In the end, it wasn't just about solving an equation or building a device. It was about proving that humanity still had the spirit to dream, to hope, and to strive for something greater. It was about showing the universe that even when everyone else laughed and gave up, humans believed. And sometimes, that belief was enough to change the course of history. The weeks and months that followed humanity's first steps into the stars were filled with both wonder and challenges. The spacecraft launched using the principles of the Nexus core returned safely, bringing back data and images from regions of space no human had ever seen before. These discoveries sparked a wave of excitement across Earth as people marveled at the beauty and complexity of the universe. But they also raised questions about humanity's role in this vast galaxy and how to navigate the unknown. Daniel, Emma, and Ryan found themselves thrust into roles they hadn't anticipated. They became advisors, educators, and ambassadors for humanity's new chapter. Governments and organizations sought their input on everything from interstellar diplomacy to ethical considerations about interacting with alien civilizations. It was overwhelming at times, but they embraced the responsibility, knowing they had a unique perspective to offer. Zoran, the Valen ambassador, continued to guide them, though his presence grew less frequent. When he did appear, his words carried weight. "You have earned your place among the stars," he told them during one visit. "But remember, exploration is not just about claiming territory or resources. It is about understanding others, understanding yourselves, and finding harmony in diversity." His advice resonated deeply with Daniel. He often thought about the lessons learned during their journey, the importance of humility, patience, and collaboration. These values had brought humanity this far, and Daniel knew they would be crucial as they ventured further into the cosmos. Emma took charge of organizing global efforts to prepare for future missions. She worked tirelessly to ensure that advancements in technology benefited everyone, not just a select few. Her focus shifted from solving equations to addressing real-world problems, improving education systems, reducing inequality, and fostering international cooperation. "If we're going to explore the stars, we need to get our own house in order first," she said during a speech at a global summit. "We can't bring Earth's divisions into space." Ryan, meanwhile, became a symbol of optimism and innovation. His youthful energy inspired countless young people to pursue careers in science and engineering. He traveled around the world, speaking at schools and universities, sharing the story of how 3 ordinary people had dared to dream big. "It's not about being a genius or having all the answers," he told audiences. "It's about believing in yourself and never giving up, even when things seem impossible." Despite their success, the trio remained humble. They knew they weren't heroes because of their intelligence or talent. They were heroes because they refused to give up. Their journey had shown the world that perseverance and teamwork could overcome even the most daunting challenges. Laura played an important role in Daniel's life during this time. She wrote a book chronicling their experience, capturing the highs and lows of their struggle to solve the eternal equation. The book became a bestseller, not just for its thrilling narrative, but for the message it conveyed, that belief in oneself and others could spark change. Laura dedicated the book to everyone who has ever been told they couldn't succeed but chose to believe anyway. As humanity prepared for its second mission into deep space, the impact of the Nexus core continued to ripple through society. New industries emerged, driven by technologies derived from the device. Renewable energy sources powered cities, medical breakthroughs saved lives, and communication systems connected people across continents like never before. The world felt smaller, yet infinitely larger, a paradox that reflected humanity's newfound place in the universe. The Valans watched these developments closely, their expressions unreadable. Zoran occasionally offered insights, helping humanity avoid pitfalls common to younger civilizations. "Growth is painful," he said during one meeting, "but it is necessary. Do not fear mistakes, learn from them." His words reminded Daniel of their early days working on the equation, when failure seemed constant but ultimately led to success. Humanity was still learning, still growing, and the road ahead would undoubtedly be bumpy. But Daniel trusted that the same spirit that had solved the eternal equation would guide them forward. One evening, as Daniel stood on the rooftop of his apartment building gazing at the stars, Laura joined him. She wrapped her arms around him, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't tried?" she asked softly. "All the time," Daniel replied, smiling faintly. "But then I remember that we did try, and because of that, everything changed." Laura nodded, her eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "You've given people hope, Daniel. Not just here, but everywhere. That's something no one can take away." Her words stayed with him long after they went inside. Hope, it was a simple concept yet so powerful. It had driven them to solve the impossible, to reach for the stars and to prove that humanity was capable of greatness. And now, as Earth looked toward the future, hope burned brighter than ever. Years passed, and humanity flourished. Missions to other star systems became routine, each one expanding knowledge and fostering connections with alien civilizations. The Nexus core remained a symbol of what could be achieved when determination met opportunity. Museums displayed replicas of the device, reminding visitors of the courage and ingenuity that had propelled humanity into the galactic community. Daniel, Emma, and Ryan eventually stepped back from the spotlight, allowing a new generation to take the reins. They remained friends, meeting regularly to reflect on their journey and discuss the latest developments. Though their roles had changed, their bond remained unshakable, a testament to the power of shared purpose. In quiet moments, Daniel often thought about the Valans and their challenge. What had started as a test of intelligence had become something far greater, a catalyst for unity and progress. Humanity had proven that it wasn't defined by its limitations, but by its ability to rise above them. As he grew older, Daniel cherished the memories of those early days in the lab, the late nights, the failures, the breakthroughs. They reminded him that greatness wasn't achieved overnight. It was built step by step, fueled by belief and resilience. And though the world had changed dramatically since then, one truth remained constant: humanity's potential was limitless. On a clear night, years after the activation of the Nexus core, Daniel sat on a bench in a park near his home. Above him, the sky stretched endlessly, dotted with stars that now felt closer than ever. A group of children played nearby, laughing and pointing at the constellations. One of them approached, him holding a small model spaceship. "Is it true you helped build this?" the child asked, wide-eyed. Daniel smiled, nodding. "I helped a little," he said, "but it wasn't just me. Lots of people worked together to make it happen." The child grinned, clutching the toy tightly. "Someday, I'm gonna go to the stars too," Daniel chuckled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I hope you do," he said. "And when you do, remember this. No matter how hard things get, never stop believing. Because sometimes that's all it takes to change the world." As the child ran back to join their friends, Daniel leaned back on the bench, closing his eyes. The sound of laughter filled the air, mingling with the distant hum of a spacecraft ascending into the heavens. Humanity had come so far, yet its journey was only beginning. And Daniel knew, with certainty, that the spirit of belief would continue to light the way for today, tomorrow, and all the days to come.